Welcome back to The Person Everyone Needs. I am your host, Webb Hoggard, and today we're going to finish up the story of Jonathan. We've been walking through the narrative of Jonathan, and over the next several weeks I'll be doing more commentary on his actual life. But as I've said multiple times over this podcast, I really believe the person of Jonathan embodies what it takes to be the person that everyone needs. And so we've talked about the day that he became a prince, when his dad became king. We've talked about his greatest day, his strongest day, when he defeated the Philistines in that major rout. And today we're going to talk about how Jonathan became a friend that would change the future king's life forever. So I'm going to pick back up where we were talking about last week. Jonathan's life in his later years take no downturn in velocity. In the same dramatic way that he is thrust upon the stage of leadership over the people of God, his life will be cut short, but still on full display in the eye of the nation of Israel. And just like he took his position as prince with great grace and ability, he will spend every day pouring out his life to those around him. The man who became prince overnight and the warrior who decimated his greatest rival in a day's battle looks to achieve the greatest feat, his legacy. Identity comes from realizing who has made you. Destiny is proving what you're made of. Legacy is not what you leave behind, but who you leave behind. Every single one of us leaves a wake behind us, whose life is being altered by your influence. The reason Jonathan's story is nearly perfect is he's obscure enough that you don't find out many of his faults, yet he's so pertinent to one of the greatest men in history that he seems legendary. The day Jonathan really meets David is the last day that David was a boy. If you want to talk about the people that go from zero to hero, that's the story of David. David was a young and handsome boy who spent his days taking care of sheep outside of Bethlehem. He was an intelligent, peculiar kid. He learned how to keep his sheep safe with a sling. He wrestled a bear and a lion to their death. Also, he learned how to play an instrument. Songwriter, leader, assassin, and inventor would all be roles he played eventually. That journey begins when Samuel anoints his head as the next king of Israel. David, in the eyes of God, would take the place mapped out for Jonathan. How does Jonathan react? Well, the head of Goliath is gripped in the small hand of David. He lifts the champion's skull overhead, and the entire army erupts with passionate pursuit of the stunned enemy. Another great victory brought to pass by the passion of a younger warrior. Saul, again, is not the man of courage Israel desperately needs. Jonathan's soul is knit to David's at that moment. Jonathan removes his armor and gives it to David. His robe, his weapons, his belt, they're stripped away and given to David. Jonathan makes a covenant with David right there. We will be brothers forever. This friendship will not be like any other. Covenant friendships are powerful. If you get the chance to have such a friendship, recognize its beauty and be grateful. What signifies the type of relationship? Someone who is always for you, even if it's against themselves or even what you may want. Someone who pushes you to the very best version of yourself. Jonathan loved David more than himself, and that love will be tested. Just as David is getting acclimated to all this new fame in the palace, King Saul is threatened by David's success and begins to find a way to get rid of him. He is so tormented by his own cowardice and disobedience, the servants believe he sees demonic spirits. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him. The Lord had departed from Saul, and this has made Saul paranoid and angry. While David played his lyre and attempts to help comfort the king, Saul grabs a spear and throws it at David. David ducks and gets away. Moments later, another spear is thrown his way. David escapes twice from deadly spears thrown at him from a sulking king. King Saul then decides to get rid of David another way and sends him into battle. But the hand of God was so mighty with David, every battle he entered, he succeeds. This makes Saul even angrier. part of beating Goliath, one of the winning parts of it was that Saul offered one of his daughters to whoever could beat Goliath. And now this David, this man that he's mad at because he can't believe all the fame that he's receiving, this is one of his, he's going to be a son-in-law. I mean, that's what's going to happen, and he doesn't want that to happen, but he begrudgingly lets it happen, and he gives Michal to David, and he falls in love with Michal. And Saul takes this idea. He says, I'm going to get into the head of David by using my daughter. I'm going to manipulate my daughter to figure out what's going on, and one by one I'll be able to break down who David is. So Saul tries to kill David with a spear in battle on the front lines by sending him to the Philistines to retrieve the bride price of 100. Yeah, it's an awkward story. And if all that doesn't work, then at least he will have his daughter in David's house, and surely he can work that to his advantage. So David returns from the Philistines with, he's got 200 of the 100 things he was asking about. Go check it out for yourself. He marries Michal, increases his collateral in the eyes of Israel, and daily puts the fear in the Philistine nation. Saul kept plotting to kill David. Jonathan, however, knew David's potential destiny. He loved David and confronted his father, the king, about his unacceptable hatred of a man who had risked his own life for his nation. Saul relented because of the persuasion of Jonathan. Jonathan spent his time honoring and helping a young man instead of preserving his place as the next ruler. Wars came, David fights, Israel wins, Saul is tormented again. David came to serve Saul, and again a spear is thrown his way. Saul intended to pin him to the wall. David narrowly escapes to his home. Saul sends guards to quarantine him and hopes to kill him the very next day. Yet Michal helps him escape. Saul is so angry with his daughter, he rebukes her. She responds that David threatened her, which makes him even more angry. David now is on the run. He runs to Samuel as to say, you got me in this mess by anointing me. What are you going to do? And Samuel provides a miraculous hedge of protection through the power of God there. Yet David still decides to go back home and consult with Jonathan. The last scene of David and Jonathan's brotherhood is seen here. Their short friendship blossomed into a covenantal, lifelong relationship. And then they become brother-in-law, actual family. Then the jealous father-in-law spends his days trying to kill this man. Jonathan meets with David and assures him again, I will talk to my father and I'll fix all these things. He tells David to hide, and when he has found out whether or not he is safe, he'll come to that field and shoot an arrow. When his boy goes to retrieve them, he will shout out to him to come closer if it's safe and to go further if it's not. Before confronting Saul again, Jonathan makes a second covenant. First was the covenant with David alone. The second covenant with the lineage of David, declaring their descendants would be connected. This covenant was unnecessary and so sacrificial for Jonathan, yet it is David who will fulfill its expectations. Jonathan swears his love for David again. He loved him like his own soul. He would find out quickly that his father had every intention of killing David. Saul so hates David that he slanders his own wife in his rage, calling Jonathan's mother a perverse and rebellious woman. Jonathan attempts to understand why his father is so unreasonable and is met with a tossed spear. Saul attempts to murder his own son, the heir to his throne, the very throne that was needing protecting from David. Without an heir, why kill David? Saul has completely lost it. His mind, his kingdom, and now his family. And it won't be much longer, his life. Jonathan goes out to the field and tells his boy to retrieve the arrows. He exclaims, "Is not the arrows beyond you? Hurry, be quick, do not stay." The boy, a little confused, grabs the arrows and runs to Jonathan. Jonathan instructs him to head back into town, and he leaves. And as he leaves, David runs to his best friend, sobbing. He knows that this is goodbye. He knows that nothing will ever be the same. His days in Saul's palace are over. His days as the great general of the Israelite armies are done. His days with Jonathan are finished. These two grown men hold one another. Jonathan finally speaks, "Go in peace. Everything we have sworn to one another still stands. May God see to it that our offspring be together forever." David wipes his tears and runs into the wilderness. David was taught how to be a prince by Jonathan. He saw what a leader looked like. He saw what honor looks like in Jonathan. Jonathan lived loyalty. He remained loyal to the king and to his friend. Jonathan was the first example of living faithfully to God daily that David had ever seen. Prince, warrior, and friend. Jonathan set the stage for David to succeed in every way, but there was one more lesson he would get to teach. It's the most important lesson, and we'll pick up on that next week. The reason I wanted to go back through the story of Jonathan is because I really believe that the three major phases of his life, he shows us and illustrates the power of a person that everyone needs. And so I hope as we continuously want to become the person that everyone needs, that we'll follow in his example. A person of favor, a person of courage, and a person of honor. We'll see you next week.